Hi, people. Welcome to Black Girl Problems. Today, I just want to talk about. Um, I was just closing the door. I want to talk about the fact that racism and Islamophobia or anti-Islam is not the same thing. And the point I want to make, because quite often, um, people of color that are Muslims want to brainwash you and believe in that it's the same thing. I know in Africa there's the majority of Africa is actually Christian, yeah. Where Islam dominates, it's the Muslim north, where the Arab conquest of Africa, and obviously they have historically got into they've had the Arab slave trade, haven't they? And they have historically gone around Iceland, you know, England, Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and in kidnapped white folk, white Europeans, and enslaved them, and churches, Christendom, churches have had to pay ransoms to free those white slaves, and the majority of them didn't get freed. I think they say it's between the 16th to, I think it's the 18th century, where over 1 million white Europeans were enslaved in North Africa. That is why North Africa, their descendants, that's why North Africa has a lot of light-skinned white people that can pass for white, because of the fact that their ancestors were white slaves from Europe and stuff like that. And obviously, oh, I forgot that Albania and the Balkans, the Balkan countries as well, where white people are there, Russia and Ukraine, and all those people that were also enslaved from the Afro Arab Muslims, yeah. So what I want to point out is that you get white Muslims, and a prime example of this is a country called Albania. 50% of Albanians are Muslim, but as in looking at the pictures, you can clearly see that these people, they're white people. Do you know what I mean? That they're straight up white people, yeah. And it's saying 50% of them are Muslim. So Albania is next to near countries like Greece and yada 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 yada. But these people are white. So how are you going to call it a form of racism when these people are straight up white folk? Do you know what I mean? And they became Muslim because of the Turkish Ottoman Empire. Um, so for me, it's a real insult to try and tell me that a random white person from Albania is suffering from racism just because they're what you call it, Muslim. They're not. They're white. That's what they are. What they might be suffering from is anti-Islam sentiment if they're a white Albanian Muslim, but they're not. It's not racism that they're suffering from in Europe. Yeah, these white Muslims, they're not suffering from racism. Yeah. So, and this is what you've got to be careful of. Yeah, that this is, and this is why ignore the people that claim that Islamophobia and racism are the same thing. No, they're not. The majority of people who are Muslim are people of color, but there's still a minority of people who are white Europeans that are Muslim. Do you know what I mean? The actual word slave comes from Slavic, because they were subjugated for so long, the Slavic people. That's where the word comes from, yeah? Um, so that's what I want to say to people. Now, another thing with religion is you've got to remember that religion and race are not the same thing. Like these white um, Albanians can't change the race that they're from. They're Indo-European people. The same way the Greeks are, the same way the Italians are, the same way the Germans, the Swedish, all Indo-European people whose ancestors came from Russia. That's where the Indo-European person came out of, Russia. Yeah. So this is what we've got to remember. But they've been conquered. as that's why they, the word Slav comes from the Slavic people, the Indo-European Slavic people, because white people have also been enslaved, and they got enslaved. There's times in the Roman Empire when the Romans used to enslave other white folk as well as black folk and brown folk. But after that, then you had the Islamic empires, the Arab slave trade, and the Arab slave trade still hasn't finished. Let's be honest, they're still enslaving people. Yeah. So for me, I find it really annoying and disrespectful that you want to come and try and tell me that this person is suffering from racism because they're a white Muslim from Albania. Are you having a laugh? Seriously, are you having a laugh? And you want to equate that with the same thing as a black person suffering from anti-blackness? It's not the same thing. Now, one of the I can't speak for Tommy Robinson. I can't speak for white people who don't like Islam, and they don't like black people that are Muslims, like the Somalians and who all these other people. I can't speak for them. I'm only speaking for me. Yeah, but stop equating black people and making out that all black people are Muslim. The majority of black people in the world are not Muslim. It is those Afro-Arabs that are trying to spread Islam via the sword, as they did in Gambia. They did the same thing in Nigeria. They did the same thing in Ethiopia. They spread in Sudan. They spread Islam via the sword. That is why they are black people in Africa that are Muslim. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is the majority of black Africa is not Muslim. And that's why I think they say it's like about 64% of black Africans are Christians. That's what you got to remember, yeah? And there's a huge difference between a black Muslim and a black Christian. When we talk about religion, it's a cultural thing. A religion comes out of a culture. And the Arab culture is misogynistic. And they make their money through slavery. That's how they do it. They like to this day they're still subjugating people. Yeah, trafficking children from Sudan and Pakistan and India so they can go and race camels in the desert. Do you know what I mean? Like a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, so Arab man can just sit there and force children to go and race camels for his enjoyment. Yeah. That's the type of thing. That's the type of things that the Arabs get up to. But in their religion, the Arab religion, they say that they can marry 4 women, and that the Prophet of Islam said that your testimony as a woman is only worth half of as a man. What more do you need to know? That the Muslims don't believe that women are equal and you have the same rights as a man, and that Islam as a religion is oppressive. That is what they believe in. Yeah. Now, one thing I want to show you, there's a Nigerian senator, disgusting senator. He's a pervert basically, but he's a Muslim pervert, so it's no surprise. Anyway, let's have a look at what this guy did. This perfect guy, yeah. Oh, it's so disgusting, the story. So this guy here, he went and bought a girl from Egypt. He went and bought a girl from Egypt. The guy is in his 50s. He went and married a 14-year-old girl. Now she's pregnant and stuff. He's got 29 children. In the Nigerian constitution, it says marriage is for an 18-year-old. But in the north he was one of the guys that campaigned for the north to be governed by Sharia law. So there's federal law in Nigeria and Sharia law, and the Muslims get to choose whether they're governed by Islamic Sharia law or federal law. Now, quite a lot of the Muslims like to choose Sharia law because it's cheaper than the federal law if they get any problems. So when he's asked why he married a 14-year-old girl, when he's already got 29 or 28 children, and he's already got 3 wives, he said because of the Prophet Muhammad. And that's the thing. Prophet Muhammad had, I think they say 12 wives. One of them was 13, 14, and he was in his 50s. Do you know what I mean? And we know he married Aisha when she was 6 and consummated the marriage at 9. So when you've got a prophet of Islam that is a sexual predator to children and believes in child trafficking, what can you do? This is why, and this is why I could never be a Muslim. Do you know what I mean? And I condemn Islam. I don't like Islam. It's disgusting. It's just their prophet was a child predator. That's what he was. He was a slave owner. He was a warlord. He was. There's so many different things this guy was doing. But now there was nothing that the people that opposed him. Like there were people that opposed him. I saw 1 or 2 Muslim women oppose him, but he just kept on saying, "My prophet, did it," and we decide what a child is. Yeah. So once they decided on when you menstruate. Yeah. Now the sad thing for me is this. Could you imagine this girl come from Egypt? Yeah. So we have to ask ourselves. We've got this Nigerian senator. Yeah. That is trafficking a 14-year-old girl. Yeah, there she is. Here she is, a 14-year-old girl. Yeah. 14. So the women and teenage girls, children have no rights in Africa, and it shows how don't have it in Egypt, which is another Muslim country that was conquered by the Arabs and imposed Islamic rule by force. Yeah, but this is the type of thing that you're signing up to in Islam. Do you know what I mean? Anytime you want to oppose them in child marriage and shit like that, they will say, these ones that got sexual fetishes like their prophet did, their sexual fetish for children, yeah, they just say that their prophet did it. And their prophet is exemplary. You can't question their prophet. And you know how the Muslims are. Many of these Muslims, the minute you point out that your prophet's a paedophile, before they'll call it hate speech, they'll call it this and all this stuff. But I don't see even the Muslims that I've seen that would claim that they wouldn't marry their a 14 or a 6-year-old girl to a grown man. Yeah, they still followed Muhammad. Do you know what I mean? They claim they wouldn't do it, but then they still want to claim that Muhammad was a good man. Muhammad was like Genghis Khan. The only difference is between Genghis Khan and Muhammad is Genghis Khan never claimed to be a prophet. But this is what I mean by the culture. This guy, he's got Senator, is it Yerima? He has Yerima, yeah, Yerima. He's got a sexual fetish for underage teenage girls. That's what he's got. And as you can see, they've had a daughter. This is probably his 30th child, which is so disgusting. Do you know what I mean? But what is the quality? I remember being in Egypt as a 14-year-old girl myself, and this Arab man trying to marry me, propose marriage, and I was like 14, and the guy must be in his 20s. It was so fucking disgusting. But that's the mentality that a woman and a girl, they're not worth much in Islam. Do you know what I mean? So don't try and bring this shit to black people or brown people who are, or other people or white people we don't believe in all this bullshit. Do you know what I mean? No, another thing you have to ask yourself: why are the Muslims so intent in marrying these young girls to these old fucking men as well? Like say you come from, because in these poor countries where education ain't free, not free healthcare, there's lack of jobs. So people get married young, don't they? Like 14, 12 or whatever. But they married their own age. Someone in the age range. Why would you? How can you justify? This guy already has 3 fucking children. I mean, 3 wives. He's got 29 children, and then he went and bought a 14-year-old girl from Egypt. And apparently he paid $100,000 dowry. That's apparently it was his driver's daughter or something like that. But because he's a senator, he's a powerful man in Nigeria from the north. I assume he's a Hausa man. He's a predator, but he's a predator, and he was using Islamic law to undermine the federal law in Nigeria that says the age of marriage is 18. So this is one of the reasons why I don't want to be in a country with Muslim people. I wouldn't, the day Nigeria breaks up, I'm going to celebrate. Let the Muslims, if they're Muslims, think it's all right for a 53-year-old man to come and marry a 14-year-old girl and pay 100,000 and have 29 children. And if you think that's all right, that's fine. But let them go their way, and us Christians will progress ourselves and go another way. Let them do their thing. But it tells you just how little women and females are worth in Islam, and that they can just come and buy somebody, yeah, and how little Islam and in Egypt a woman's life, a female woman's life is worth. Yeah, and she's not even a woman. 14, for fuck's sake. The guy was grinning. He was interviewed. He was grinning, man. He was disgusting, man. Proper predator. He said, let me show you what he said. Let me show you what he said. This predator, man. Because at first it came out she was 13, but then eventually said, no, she's 14. Like, it really makes a difference.
Who you were being called at the time?
What name?
The man who marries of children.
Well, it's many names. When I remove the hand of a thief, they call me a butcher of the butcher of Zamfara. So many names can be called. So long as I did everything that I'm doing within the law, I don't care about anybody's.
You're familiar with the VAP Act now?
Which act?
The VAP Act, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, and what some of the laws relating to young children.
Is passed by who?
It's a federal law. It's an act of the parliament.
Whatever act is passed at the National Assembly has to be domesticated by the state assemblies. And once they have not done that, it's no longer a law. Passenger tried to smuggle the Child Rights Act. He passed it at the National Assembly through some manipulations. But no, I don't think any state in the north domesticated it and passed it.
You think it was that Child Rights Act was about you?
You just wanted to solve the problem but it was unconstitutional. If that law is challenged at the Supreme Court, to be.
You don't think a child has the right under the law to education?
Marriage cannot stop education. How many married women are in education now?
The woman you married at that age, is she very educated now?
Yes.
And she wasn't a woman. This girl was 14, people. She's not a woman. She's a teenage girl. But she obviously came from a poor family. Maybe they were hungry. But another thing, in Islam, that is what they believe in. Their prophet married a 6-year-old and consummated the marriage at 9. And she's not the only one. He also married a 13, 14-year-old girl as well. And then he had that sex slave from Egypt. And he never married her, but he impregnated her and she produced a son for him. This is what the Muslims believe in. That is what their religion is on. Yeah? Just because they're not all doing it, it doesn't mean that their prophet didn't do it. But the fact of the matter is, these stupid people that convert to Islam, yeah, these women, I have no idea why a woman would convert to Islam. When you see what they're doing, they come and say that you can have 4 wives. And then your prophet is sleeping. Why in God's earth is a 53-year-old man sleeping with a 9-year-old girl? That's fucking rape. Yeah? He's a pedophile. He's got a sexual preference for children. And this is another guy like that. Maybe this guy's got a small willy. That's why he wants a 14-year-old girl. So it make it feel tight. That's what a lot of them like to say, in it. That the reason why they want to go for the young teenage girls is because it's tight, their versions, and they can feel it when they got a small penis. Fucking dickheads.
To what extent?
She's doing her master's degree now. I told you my own daughter, who was married at 16, is doing her PhD.
That's 16.
So this guy said he got a 16-year-old daughter and she's doing her master's now. And that's what he believes in. Now, I don't have a problem with if you're 16, you want to get married and stuff like that, because in Britain it's the same thing. If you're 16, you can get married if you got a parent consent. But my problem is the age difference. When you got a huge fucking age difference, and then another thing is, when you're a married woman, of course it's going to be hard to have education because you got to find money to look after your picking still. Do you know what I mean? And pregnancy and all that stuff. But the guy is a fucking pervert. And unfortunately, in Nigeria, because of the Muslims, they got perverts in office. And you know how the Muslims are, you know, they wage Islam via the sword. That's how they spread it in Nigeria. Those Fulani houses, they spread it. They come and converted the Yoruba or your empire via the sword to Islamic rule. Do you know what I mean? They tried that shit in Eastern Nigeria, but the Igbo gave them an arse whooping. That's why you don't see any Eastern Nigerian people that are Muslim unless they converted themselves. You don't see that, in Eastern Nigerian people are not Muslim. You know what I mean? We don't worship a paedophile. Do you know what I mean? Like Muhammad and stuff like that. And he was illiterate as well, man. Man was just an armed robber. Disgusting pervert, man. The false prophet. And this is what they say in Christianity: beware of the false prophet. In fact, I need to finish this with what Saint Thomas Aquinas said. The Saint Thomas Aquinas said about Muhammad. Yeah, it's important because he's a false prophet. And like now, obviously, Tommy Robinson's being released. Yeah, but I think Tommy Robinson is, I think he's a closet racist, because the things like he was bigging up Marie Le Pen from France, and what he said about the Black Lives Matter and the way he went and beat up that African homeless refugee on the streets of Italy. Do you know what I mean? There's so many things that this Tommy Robinson says, but the only thing I would say with Tommy Robinson is he's got the strength of a lion. I'll give him that. Because the thing with Tommy Robinson is they're constantly putting this man in jail, and every fucking time, this guy, he just goes back to saying what he wants to do. I think obviously he's a cokehead as well. Do you know what I mean? He's got his coke addiction and stuff that can explain. And honestly, he's Tommy Robinson's a career criminal, isn't it? Let's be honest, because he got done for mortgage fraud. He got done for going to America on a false passport. Do you know what I mean? He does fraud. That's what he is. But I tell you what, he's still a brave man, because he clearly doesn't like Islam. Yeah. And I tell you, I can't blame him, because for me, you can't come and ruin my culture. I am proud to be Afro-English, and I'm proud to be a Nigerian. And I just know in Eastern Nigeria, we don't have to put up. I mean, when I go to Nigeria, I don't have to put up with all these Muslims. They stay in their part of Nigeria. But I tell you what, I know for a fact that in Eastern Nigeria, they would massacre any Muslim that thought they could convert Eastern Nigeria via the sword to Islam, because Eastern Nigerian people are just fucking crazy anyway. They don't even like each other. Do you know what I mean? Let alone any Muslims. It just never happened. Do you know what I mean? But the fact of the matter is, the Muslims like to spread their shit via the sword, and etc. etc. But I really want to finish this with what like, you know, when I look at Jesus and I just think to myself, I never heard Jesus was armed robber, robbing people. I never heard that Jesus was sleeping with a 9-year-old girl. I never heard that Jesus had a sex slave. This is what I hear everything about Prophet Muhammad. These are all the things that Prophet Muhammad did. And the Muslims will tell you that as well. That's the worst thing. The Muslims will admit. And then their book, when it goes, they've got a book, didn't they? When it got, Muhammad had the strength of 30 men. He visited all his 12 wives in one night. That's some dirty ass stuff. So dirty ass stuff in the holy book. How can the holy book talk about I had the strength of 30 men and I visited all my wives in one night? If that even happened, it's a dirty ass stuff. It's a false religion. It's a whole load of paganism. And that Kaaba thing that they're always worshipping, that Kaaba was worshipped hundreds of years before the Prophet of Islam popped up. It's a pagan religion. Yeah? Fuck it. Fuck Islam and fuck Prophet Muhammad. He's a fucking predator. Yeah? Now let's listen to what Thomas Aquinas said about it.
There are many religions in this world. In the 13th century, St. Thomas Aquinas wrote that Muhammad perverts almost all the testimonies of the Old and New Testaments by making them into fabrications of his own, as can be seen by anyone who examines his law.
So there's another thing that Muhammad, St. Thomas Aquinas said. Let's see if I can find the correct video. Yeah, so this is what
in the case of Muhammad.
So this is what St. Thomas Aquinas in the 1300s says of Prophet Muhammad. The criticisms of the Prophet of Islam have been going back centuries. Do you know what I mean? It's not just popped up, yeah? And the reason why they're saying it's the religion of peace now, because people are getting fucking fed up of their religious jihad and their religious wars and converting people by the sword and fucking blowing up kids in fucking Manchester over a fucking pop concert. The people getting fed up of their fucking their warlord and their warish ways. And basically what's happening to Britain is, I agree with Tommy Robinson on one thing. They are definitely trying to Islamize the UK, but there are more powerful forces involved. Even the indigenous folk in Britain are causing the problem because, for one, they've got a bone to pick with Christianity. You know, these atheists and these scientific people, the Richard Dawkins sects, the people that claim that black people evolved from apes, you know, those type of people, the Richard Dawkins set, you know, those type of people. Then obviously you've got the homosexuals, you know, the alphabet community, for obvious reasons. Christianity is against that type of sexual lifestyle, so they're attacking it. There's a lot of different people who are indigenous white folk in Britain that are attacking it, yeah, and they're in league with countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, like all these mosques that are popping up. A lot of the money is coming from Saudi Arabia and Qatar. It's not the Muslim community all suddenly just raising the money and they got all suddenly they find the money to build a mosque. No, it's coming from these Islamic countries. Yeah.
Muhammad. He seduced the people by promises of carnal pleasure to which the concupiscence of the flesh goads us. His teaching also contained precepts that were in conformity with his promises, and he gave free rein to carnal pleasure. In all this, as is not unexpected, he was obeyed by carnal men. As for proofs of the truth of his doctrine, he brought forward only such as could be grasped by the natural ability of anyone with a very modest wisdom. Indeed, the truths that he taught he mingled with many fables and with doctrines of the greatest falsity. He did not bring forth any signs produced in a supernatural way, which alone fittingly gives witness to divine inspiration, for a visible action that can be only divine reveals an invisibly inspired teacher of truth. On the contrary, Muhammad said that he was sent in the power of his arms, which are signs not lacking even to robbers and tyrants. What is more, no wise men trained in things divine and human, believed in him from the beginning. Those who believed in him were brutal men and desert wanderers, utterly ignorant of all divine teaching, through whose numbers Muhammad forced others to become his followers by the violence of his arms. Nor do divine pronouncements on the
That's all that needs to be said. And this guy's thing in the 1300s, the St. Thomas Aquinas. And that's what I'm saying. It was violent men that followed him, carnal men that were armed robbers. Do you know what I mean? That followed Muhammad, perverted men that just will go from one woman's bed to another woman's bed, take women by force, and turn them into sex slaves, into children, like Muhammad was into children to gratify his sexual pleasure. It's disgusting. Anyway.
Part of preceding prophets offer him any witness. On the contrary, he perverts almost all the testimonies of the Old and New Testaments by making them into fabrications of his own, as can be seen by anyone who examines his law. It was, therefore, a shrewd decision on his part to forbid his followers to read the Old and New Testaments. lest these books convict him of falsity. It is thus clear that those who place any faith in his words believe foolishly. End of quote. Summa Contra Gentiles, Book 1, Chapter 6.
So I would recommend that anybody read St. Thomas Aquinas' writings. Because I was thinking to myself, if a man in the 1300s can say this about Muhammad, it's quite obvious that it was true. Because I'm thinking, even he's noticed that the man was a carnal man, he was a violent man, etc. He was mixing truths with falsehoods. And to this day, like, what is there any place where Islam has been brought forth that they haven't spread it via the sword? Do you know what I mean? I don't know any place that they haven't spread Islam via the sword. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, and share my videos. And yeah, racism and Islam ain't the same. Because you can hide your religion, but I can't hide my race.